So now let's talk about adding threads in our drawing. Now before we do that, I want to put a disclaimer here. Whenever you want to add a thread, just add it in the features where you want to 3D print it or you want to practically use it. Now if you want to add threads only for specifications, then add it not in the part level but in the drawings. For example, in this case, if you just want to show that this shaft has a particular thread or maybe this hole has a thread, then you can do that directly in the drawing rather than adding a real thread here. Now the reason why we avoid adding real threads is because it's a resource intensive part and it consumes a lot of resources and the drawing tends to get slow because of threads. So if you are not planning to 3D print or maybe use the thread in a real drawing, then use it in the drawing level, specify there, and of course in the manufacturing process anyone can read the 2D drawing and then create the threads. So with that being said, now let's talk about creating a thread, and here we are talking about the real thread. So I've got this hole and as you can see it is a 1/4 inch hole here, and then we have a shaft. So we are going to create threads in hole as well as on this shaft. So I'll go to this option here in the hole wizard and the thread tool, that's right here, select. And now this prompt actually says that the dimensions which is specified in this next feature are kind of nominal, so you may need to modify it to get the right sizes. So that's understood, so just click OK. All right, now the first thing here is the thread location. So you just need to start with the point where you want to start this thread. So I'll select this edge and now the thread will start right here. Then we have the second option, which is basically the place up to which you want the thread to go. Now we'll get to that in a moment. Also we have offset and angle. Again, we'll talk about these three options in a moment. Now let's go to this end condition. Now here we have some options like blind, selected, and then you can specify the depth of this thread. You can also select revolutions and you can specify a number of revolutions, and finally you can select up to selection, and then you can select a plane and the thread will be created up to that plane. So in this case I'll keep that one selected, up to selection, and I'll select the face. Alright, then let's go to specification. So in this specification we have some options like die and tap, and also for die as well as tap we have inch and metric. Now in this case of course we are creating thread inside this hole, so we'll be using a tap for this. So select tap, and when you create thread on these kind of features on a shaft you'll use die. So here I'll select inch tap. Now this is the size of thread. You can select whatever size you want. Now in this case I'll select 0.25-28. There we are. And then we have the diameter and the pitch. Now that's automatically selected based on the hole diameter. Now maybe I'll just change the size a little bit. So here, just 1 unit. All right. Now the next option here is the thread method. Now we have either a cut thread or extrude thread. In this case we are using a tap, and tap usually cuts the material, so it just removes the material. So of course we are going to use the cut thread here. All right, now with these options we can now create our thread. So let's just do that, and later we'll get to all these other options. So I'll click OK, and we have our thread here. Now if you want to see this thread, click on section view, move it back, and there we are, we have got the thread. Now this thread has a few issues. Well, let's see what these issues are. So I'll just exit out of this, and here in this case let's go to this thread option and edit feature. Now the first issue is the point where this thread is ending. Now if you look at this one here, the thread is ending right where it should. I mean it is just going beyond this plane, so it's perfect here for this part. But when you look at this side here, it is ending right inside this feature, so it is abruptly ending it here, but it should go all the way up to this top profile. Now in this case you can fix this issue very easily simply by selecting a top plane. So go to this optional start location now and select maybe this plane. Now the thread will go all the way up to that plane, but of course as you can see there is no material to remove. It is not going to create anything, so it will go all the way up to this point, and from here of course it is moving outside. So yeah, we are going to get a proper thread now. So if I click OK, we'll get the thread the way we want. So now that's a perfect thread. going all the way up to this point. All right, now once again, I'll go to this thread option and I'll modify this. Now, instead of selecting this face, you can also use this offset. So I'll clear selection and I'll select offset. Now you can specify a distance and then the thread will move up to that distance. So here I have selected 0.08. I'll simply reverse the direction. Now it will move 0.08 upwards, and it looks like with this distance we are getting the thread the way we want. So I'll leave that value 0.08. Also, we have the angle. An angle is the starting angle of this thread. So as you can see, the thread is starting right here. And if you want to change that point, you can add an angle. For example, a 90-degree angle here will change the thread to this point. So now the thread will start here. So that's the angle. So here I'll leave it at 0. Now in the end condition, you can also specify an offset value, add an offset, and it will decide this end condition. So we don't need that, so I'll leave it unchecked. Alright, now I'll move all the way down to these options. Now here we have some options which are really great. So the first option here is the thread type. So right-handed thread or left-handed thread. So it will just reverse the direction of the thread. Alright, let's select right-handed thread. Now we have this multiple start thread. So multiple start threads are multiple twisted threads. So if you want more than one thread in this profile, select it, and then we'll have a double thread or maybe a triple thread if that's what you want. In this case, I'll just uncheck this one. We want a single thread here. Now also you can check these boxes, trim with start face, and when you check this box, SolidWorks will automatically terminate the thread right at this starting point. So if I select trim with start face, look at this, it will automatically exit the thread right at this plane from where the thread is starting. You can do the same for end face. So here I'll just go to this one, and as you can see, it is moving up a little bit below this last plane. So I'll just check this one, trim with end face, and now it ends exactly on this plane. So to keep things perfect, you can actually select these checkboxes. Alright, now you can also control the preview. So you can see either a shaded preview, a wireframe preview, or just a partial preview. I think wireframe is good for our example, so I'll keep this one selected. Now before I hit OK, I just want to also highlight this option here. So we have this little profile which is actually creating the thread. Now just click on locate profile and SolidWorks will bring your attention to this profile. Now this is the profile which is used for creating the thread. If you want to change its angle, you can do that here. So right now it's at 0 degrees. Let's make it 45. And there we are. Now it's at 45 degrees. Of course, it doesn't make any sense. So I'll move it back to 0. But just in case you want to change the angle of this thread profile, you can do it here. All right. Now with these changes, I'll click OK. And we have our perfect thread right here, right inside this. All right. So now that we have our thread created, I will add another thread on this shaft. And to do that, once again, I'll go to the thread option here and OK, and the thread location. So that's the circle. And then we have, well, nothing to be selected here. Up to selection, well, yes, I'll leave up to selection and maybe I'll select this plane. All right. Then now here I'll change inch tap to inch die because of course this is a shaft. So we are using a die here to cut the thread. And of course we are cutting a thread, so make sure cut thread is selected. Also choose the size. So I want thread of a smaller pitch value, so maybe this one. All right. And with all of these default options, of course you can change these if you want to. So you can click here and change the pitch value. You can also change the diameter if you want, but I'll leave the defaults. And with these settings, you can just click OK to create the thread. So I'll click OK. And we have the thread here. Now here also you'll see the same set of problems. Look at this here. The thread just ended abruptly here, which is of course not good. And here it looks like it's ending perfectly, but we need to fix it here on this part. So let's go to thread 2. And now in this case, I'll just select offset 0.08, reverse the direction. It's going to move up. All right. And I'll just make sure that it trims with the start face. Click OK. And there we are. It will make a clean cut right here. So that's how you can create real threads in SolidWorks.